That's exactly right, Ravi. This is the second best option. What the region really wants is a big US trade deal. The US can't do that because of domestic political problems. So IPEF is the best that they can come up with. On the upside, they did manage to get a dozen countries to sign up for it, including India, or at least to sign up to negotiate it, because the deal hasn't been struck. This is a deal to talk about setting up a deal. It's the first stage, not the last stage. But the real problem, as you say, is that they're not offering any market access to these countries. No tariffs will come down. And so even if it works, it'll only be a half-best option.
That said, James, there seems to be a lot of discussion about IPEF being a vehicle to really standardize the ecosystem for digital commerce in this region. Do you see that happening?
I think it's possible. The problem with that is it's disruptive. So if you're Thailand or Malaysia or Indonesia and IPEF is asking you to set up common rules in which you can trade with Japan or Australia, then that's a difficult thing to do. It requires costs. So where's the sweetener? Normally in a trade deal, the sweetener is lower tariffs and more trade. But the risk is the US here is offering an all pain and no gain kind of deal.
And James, of course, coming into this, there was a real question about what could realistically be achieved, given India's position on Russia, Ukraine, and at the same time, the fact that the new Australian Prime Minister has only been in his job for a number of hours. But to another question, what did you make of President Biden's comments on Taiwan pledging military support? The White House was forced to walk that back, saying the US would provide aid in any scenario. But it does seem like the damage was done in that moment. And this is now being characterized as a gaffe by the president on this tour in Asia. Your view on whether or not that comment is going to add or subtract to the US efforts to counter China?
Oh, it definitely doesn't help. This is the second or third time that Biden has done this, that he has made a comment about the US position on Taiwan, which has then had to be instantly walked back. And it was pretty clear to me yesterday that this was what was going to happen. The problem is twofold. On the one hand, it makes it look like the US hasn't got a grip of its messaging. But obviously in Beijing, they're going to look at this and think, well, actually, this is what he really thinks. And so they are deviating from their previous position. And so it just makes everything slightly more complicated. It represents a real debate going on in Washington about how the US should respond in this situation, but I don't think it's terribly helpful. And I think there are a lot of people in the US who wish that the administration would have a slightly tighter control over their messaging on this most sensitive of issues in US-China relations.